Right now, we're getting to enjoy the NBA playoffs that we've waited all year for. But not every team is getting to do the same because while 16 teams are fighting for their chance at a championship, 14 NBA teams missed the playoffs and a lot of teams weren't even close. So here's one thing that each of those teams needs to do to take their franchise to the next level to hopefully secure a playoff spot one day soon. Now, I will mention that I'm not coming up for anything for the Rockets, Spurs, or Pistons because they very clearly tanked this year, and with that and based on what I saw from them, the only advice I could give would be to hope to get lucky in the draft lottery and continue tanking. Other than that, I have nothing else to say for them. You might have wondered why I didn't include the Charlotte Hornets in that category too based on last season and their record. Nope, they weren't tanking, they were just actually that bad. The two main changes this team needs though is LaMelo Ball needs to start wearing high top shoes and ankle braces, and Michael Jordan needs to officially sell the team because with the way it's been run for the past 10 years, it's been terrible and has shown no signs of getting any better. Beyond that though, it's tough because you still have Gordon Hayward making $30 million a year and Terry Rozier making over 20, so it's hard to say which direction to go in. I'd say go for free agents, hope to get lucky in the draft, and trade Terry Rozier so they don't have two point guards playing together anymore. And I'll be honest, that probably wouldn't even make a difference because the Hornets are a mess. Now, the Orlando Magic aren't nearly as bad, but no matter what they do, it always seems like they're struggling. But on paper, I'd say they're only a couple of steps away from turning things around. They have a solid starting lineup and a decent roster, so they need to trade some of their depth and young players and find themselves a star player somewhere across the league to bring in. If they can do that and bring in one or two older players with veteran leadership, I think it could really turn this team around. The only problem is their extra depth is guys like Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs, and Bol Bol, who still haven't proved themselves. But who knows, a couple of those players, a great pick in this year's draft and a couple in the future, could bring in someone solid. As for if they'll actually end up doing that, I doubt it because it's the Magic. On paper, the Washington Wizards looked like they were finally going to have a resurgence this year. I was impressed with the roster they put together going into this season, but definitely not impressed by the results because it was yet another losing season for Bradley Beal and the Wizards, which is why the one move they should make would be to find a trade for Beal as soon as possible. Unfortunately though, I don't think it's possible anymore. In the past, they've always had the opportunity to trade him, but now seeing that he's a shooting guard who can't lead his team to wins, averaged 23 a game for the past 2 seasons, and is going to be making $50 million a year for the next 4 years, makes him pretty untradeable. Because even before the contract in the free agent market before he signed his massive deal, no other teams made calls to sign him, which shows what teams really think about him around the league. Now with all that said, if I'm the Washington Wizards, I'm finding a trade for him right away, and no matter what it is, I'd take it for a chance to start over and fully reset. But again, I don't know if that's even possible at this point. As for the Indiana Pacers, they're the rare team that didn't make the playoffs that I actually wouldn't make any changes to. Tyrese Halliburton got hurt and it threw off their whole season. But besides that, they're a great team and have a great roster. They got young guys, veterans, offense, and defense. So if I'm the Pacers, I'd just wait it out and see how things go next year once everyone has another year to build chemistry and play together. They just gotta give it more time, which is something the Toronto Raptors don't have anymore going into this upcoming season. I do hate teams giving up and resetting, but I think it's without question that the Raptors are one of the teams that it's most clear needs to go in a full-blown rebuild. Over the past 3 years, they've been an average middle-of-the-road team, which is worst-case scenario. Most of the roster is approaching their primes, but nothing's coming out of it, and not even to mention both Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam are going into the last year of their contracts this upcoming year. So it'd be the perfect time to try and trade both for whatever they can get. Then use the young core of OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, and Gary Trent Jr. plus whoever else they get to build around. It just seems like the best option at this point. If they keep these guys together, they'll always be average, unless they bring in a superstar, and I don't see a big free agent wanting to take their talents to Toronto anytime soon. The Chicago Bulls are a team I actually feel bad for because they had a good thing going until Lonzo got hurt, and I don't know that he's ever coming back. And now the team's just clearly not working. They missed the playoffs and couldn't win in the play-in, so they need to make a drastic change, and I'm thinking that's to trade DeMar DeRozan if possible. Zach LaVine's been the one in trade rumors a lot recently, but he's 6 years younger than DeMar. And with that and the fact that Nikola Vucevic is an unrestricted free agent now, it gives the Bulls a chance to really age down their team, which would give them a few more years to actually turn into a championship contender. At least in my mind, this is a no-brainer. But okay, now we move on to the Western Conference teams, and it's sad. After the Spurs and Rockets, who I said I wasn't going to talk about because they were tanking, we have the Portland Trailblazers, the Damian Lillard-led Trailblazers. The dude averaged 32 a game this year, and they finished with a 33-49 record. They need to trade this man, and I'm tired of it not happening. But it's okay because now is the perfect time anyways. Nobody else on the roster besides Lillard is over 30 years old. So if they can trade him and age down, they'll be in the perfect position to bring up a young team with established players like Anthony Simons to build around. There's so many teams that would give up a lot for Dame, who still has 2 years left on his contract. So this needs to happen happen in 2023. And if it doesn't because Damian Lillard still doesn't want it to happen, then this dude is just painfully loyal, and that's the biggest weakness in his game. As for the Utah Jazz, they had a surprising start to this past season, and even though they didn't finish things out so well, a 37-45 record is still a lot better than most people anticipated. I think their goal for the upcoming year is to simply find their identity. All of this past season, they were a random group of guys all put on the same team and forced to play together. They've already established that Lauri Markkanen is their star. Now they need to make signings and trades based on building an entire roster around him. And based on the amount of picks they have with Danny Ainge in the front office, I'm sure they'll get it done in no time. I mean, they just started their rebuild last season, and they're already up a future star and almost 10 first-round picks with a roster full of young talent. Aside from the OKC Thunder, it should be clear that the Utah Jazz look like they have the brightest future in the league right now. Now moving over to the Dallas Mavericks, they've been arguably the most disappointing team in the league this year after missing the playoffs completely, and the Kyrie Irving trade didn't turn out to be all that great for them. But unfortunately, the one move I'd recommend for the Mavs would be to re-sign Kyrie, who's an unrestricted free agent now. There's a lot of other solid free agents this offseason, but no one that's a real star. So I think their best bet might be to try to run it back with Irving and build more chemistry. Because even from his perspective, I don't think there's going to be a lot of teams lining up to sign him given that he's a major liability. Listen, I think Dallas should avoid giving him crazy money, and I really don't even like this scenario for them, but they've kind of backed themselves into a corner. I mean, if they can sign 2 or 3 major free agents, I say they should do that instead, but if not, maybe they keep Kyrie. Now from the New Orleans Pelicans perspective, the move they should make may be a controversial one because that's trading Zion Williamson. The dude's played 114 games in 4 years and has been injury prone every season, just like everyone predicted he would before the draft. And now his work ethic's been called into question with his weight issues and decision to sit out the playoffs because he didn't feel right. The Pelicans missed the postseason this year and probably will continue to if they have their #1 overall pick just sitting on the bench. But hey, he's still 22 and has shown massive potential when he's actually on the court, which means they could still get a massive trade offer for him with the right scenario from the right team that's willing to take the risk. I just don't think the Pelicans should be taking that risk with him and should get out while they still can, because the right trade for him could take them to the next level. Now our last team that just barely missed the playoffs is the OKC Thunder, and they're at the point where the only move they should be focused on is trading some of their young players and draft picks for a young superstar. They have a ton of talent on this team and a monster amount of picks to use as trade assets, and they showed this season that they aren't in a rebuild anymore. With Shai Gilgeous-Alexander averaging 31 a game and approaching star status, they need to make a move quickly to pair him up with another actual star. They need someone to take this team to the next level. Again, if it wasn't for the risk, I would have said a guy like Zion Williamson would have been the perfect person to bring in. But if not him, I mean, they really have enough assets to trade for anyone in the league that they want. And if they bring in a star and keep together a core of maybe Shai, Josh Giddey, and Chet Holmgren, then the sky's the limit here. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'm out.